In this episode, we get a new perspective exploring the parks, public lands, and forests of an entire state, and how this state is creating outdoors for all and encouraging recreation with a purpose. Join me as we get to know Maryland's Department of Natural Resources as they prepare for the Maryland Outdoor Recreation Summit. I'm your host, Missy Rentz, and this is the Parks Podcast. I'm really excited to have Sandi Olek, who is the Director of Outdoor Recreation at the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. Sandi, thanks for joining the Parks Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
You are my neighbor in Maryland, so I love talking about this land. We start each episode, typically it's Parks Stats, but in your case, we're going to call it Parks, Public Lands, and Forest Stats to talk about the work that you do in the Department of Natural Resources. Maryland is home to 80 state parks. Currently, 22 of the 24 counties in the state have a state park, and the aim is so that every county eventually has a state park, which I think is fascinating and amazing and so great. Maryland manages over 500 acres of public land, including wildlife management areas, state forests, and more. And there are over 1,000 miles of trails in the state. Maryland is an outdoor state.
We sure are. We have a little bit of everything in Maryland. And those are just the public lands that Department of Natural Resources manages. We have regional parks and we have some fantastic, robust local park systems too. And we have a lot of federal lands like the C&O Canal and smaller parks like Fort McHenry and things like that that are really important to our landscape and the parks in Maryland.
It's great that you mentioned that, because one of the reasons that I wanted to chat with you today is because Maryland is bringing all these people together and for a conference, and we'll get into that. But parks are clearly important to Maryland. What value do they bring to the state and local communities?
So parks are so important for people for recreation opportunities. It's important for habitat for our animals as a buffer to protect our waters and help clean our waters. But more than that, it's just the backyard and gathering spaces for so many of our communities. And as you mentioned, we have that goal of having a park in we actually have 23 counties and Baltimore City, which is its own jurisdiction. It's the 24th. And these spaces are just a place for people to unwind, recharge. We see so many community gatherings, whether it's christenings or weddings or family reunions that are happening there, but they're also places of employment. And they're great for local businesses. We have outfitters, we have rental providers, and then nearby businesses, hotels, restaurants, breweries that really are supported and benefit from the parks being nearby.
You have a unique opportunity because in some of these coastal states, me and Virginia have it, you have it. You go from ocean to mountains and everything in between. How does Maryland manage the diversity of the types of parks and people that use them? Because it's not like a cookie cutter program.
No, it's really not. And between the parks and the Forest Service, we have our state forest lands and our wildlife management areas, and they're all managed for maybe a slightly different user group or in a slightly different way, where the parks are heavy infrastructure and really a great experience for people who are new getting outside, or they're just getting introduced to outdoor recreation, or you will have parking and bathrooms. And we just take camping, for instance. You have car camping in the parks all over the state, but then we have some really great backcountry camping in some of our state forest lands in the West. And Green Ridge is one of the most popular campsites or places to camp across the state. But we really try and make the introduction easy for people through our guided experiences, through our rangers, through our staff, or interpretation. And for someone that's new to getting outdoors, whether it is the mountains to the bay to the ocean, it's all new. So it can be very exciting. We try and do things like we had just this past year a 25 in 2025 challenge. So self-guided, but giving people a prompt to go visit. And this was run through our Maryland Park Service to go visit different aspects, whether it's historical sites in our parks or visit one of our lighthouses. And we have lighthouses all over the bay. And we have one at Point Lookout that was just newly renovated. And it is beautiful and fantastic. And there's so much history there. And even when we went for the ribbon cutting for the reopening, there were people there who had connections to the lighthouse keepers and family history and had donated to the historical society, had even donated some of the furniture to be housed there. So it was really exciting to watch that. And then when you get out to Deep Creek Lake, we just celebrated the 100-year anniversary of the lake. So each one is really valued by the local community. And of course, when you talk about some of these state forest lands and the opportunity to get backcountry and camp or do some mountain biking and things like that, people really value and love these lands. And that's ultimately what we want, because you can't protect what you don't love and have never experienced it. So our Office of Outdoor Recreation is all about getting people on the land and the waters too.
So you have mentioned your Department of Recreation. You've
Mhm.
mentioned your state parks. You've mentioned the wildlife. You've mentioned forests. How do all of these different, like, what's the difference between everything? Because I think as a user of the outdoors, it's just outdoors. What's the difference?
So it's funny, I think we've even done some social media work on this, trying to show the difference. And it varies within each land management system too. But in general, I think you want to think about the infrastructure. So as I said, parks may have concessions or a rangers that are staffed there, bathrooms, access, rentals, to be able to car camp. Whereas state forests are managed not only for habitat, but they're managed for forestry. So you will see cuts and replanting and harvest happening. But there's still a lot of trails, camping. One of our most beautiful places to go fly fishing is in Savage River State Forest in the West. And then our wildlife management areas are often managed for unique habitats or wildlife, or they're managed for hunting and for hunting grounds, and which you get a lot of habitat restoration that goes alongside of that. So a lot of times the trails may be less developed or less marked, and whereas the parks are going to be more of a grill and camping area.
Got it.
But again, it's all on a spectrum and it's all on a range. And with so many spaces and 500,000 acres, there's so much to
Yeah.
explore.
Yeah, it really is. Okay, one of the things I noticed is that it seems that parks, kind of this parks for all mentality, is really important in Maryland through accessibility, inclusion, and whatnot. That seems to be one of your core values. Am I reading that right?
Oh, absolutely. And we have great partners to work with on that. We have a lot to learn ourselves, and we are really striving to improve our own infrastructure, make our spaces more inclusive. So that could be on having an adaptive kayak launch, or we even have adaptive fishing areas with a platform that'll take you out towards the middle of the river so you can get more of that fly fishing experience, not be on the shoreline, or handicap accessible hunting blinds, trying to give people that experience, as well as a variety of trail surfaces. There's always a lot of work to be done in that, and we are learning more and more about the needs of hearing impaired or vision impaired and getting people outside. We couldn't do a lot of this work without partners, and we have fantastic partners who do programming across the state, including I have experience getting out with the Lions Club of Deep Creek, and they've done a lot on blind children and adults, and working with families and getting them skiing at our ski resort in Wisp on Wisp Mountain, or camping at Deep Creek Lake State Park, or out on our lake. And our friends of Patapsco Valley do so much programming, whether it's kayaking or fishing or different kinds of hiking programs. And they do it in partnership with park staff and rangers, but they're really known throughout the state
Yeah.
and set a great example. And these are some of the stories that we're hoping to share in the practices at the summit. And when we get people coming together, the synergy is great too.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I've experienced, I am no longer a beginner, but I am a beginner in a lot of things when it
Mhm.
comes to parks. And oftentimes I run into people, maybe it's their fear or their lack of knowledge. And I think it's really important to know that these rangers love to introduce people to the outdoors. And so the programs that are put on, they want people who are on the cusp listening and just not sure. They want to teach you. They want to answer all of your questions. So I think go out and take advantage of what you, Sandy, and your team and your colleagues' teams are putting together to help introduce you to opportunities in the parks.
Yeah. Yeah, people who work in our on our public lands and on our public waterways, they're doing it because they have a passion. They have
Yeah,
a love. Someone reached out a hand to them at some point and said,
right,
"Let me show you," whether it was a
right.
family member or a friend or something. And so they want to be able to share that.
Yeah,
And also, if you put yourselves in the shoes of a forester or ranger or wildlife specialist, you don't always want to be saying, like, don't do that, don't do that. You
yeah,
can't hammock here, or you can't fish here, or you can't swim here.
right.
And it should be a place where you feel at ease and really at peace. And you're in a knowledgeable way, learning to explore and learning to push your own boundaries. But there's just so
Yeah,
much to be had there, from listening to the sounds of the trees or running water, things like that, that,
yeah.
is so great for everyone.
And there was some research, and I'm gonna botch who did it, so I'm not even gonna say it, but the majority, 95% of people who use the outdoors are beginners or casual users. And I think there's this perception that everybody who uses the outdoors is like hardcore climbing huge rocks, running centuries on trails. And that's just not the case. A majority of people are having a picnic or going for a leisurely walk on a pretty calm trail. And I think that we build up this, and sometimes I'm the worst at going, I can't do that. But I can because most people that use a park are not
Absolutely.
hardcore.
Yeah, and in the outdoor rec industry, I think there's definitely the perception that we're talking about very technical outdoor recreation pastimes, whether it's you need a very expensive mountain bike, or you
Yeah,
need to know how to bow hunt, or you need to know how to trap and prepare your own food or things like that.
yeah,
But I, al- I love to tell people that just taking a walk down the path is outdoor recreation,
yeah,
and there is a space for everyone, and it's viewing the water as well as fly fishing.
yeah,
It's just getting
yeah.
outside, journaling, listening to the sounds, birding. There's something on the spectrum for everyone. And don't get me wrong, I love those adventure days, and I've been really lately learning more about mountain biking and enjoying that, and I love long hikes that challenge me. But I think not everyone has the time to carve that out, the opportunity, or can see them. Some people are afraid of things such as insects, or just getting away from the sound of a highway. I've worked in environmental education, and I've worked with young adults who said if they can't hear the highway, they're nervous, because to them, it's they're getting into a danger zone. And everyone comes to nature from a different place and with a different experience or historical experiences from
Yeah.
their families. And there's a lot to
And that's, I think,
for
one of the
everyone.
things that's so fabulous about Maryland, and I'm learning, and I'm gonna go have to spend some time in your parks, but I think because of the diversity, you have things in Baltimore City, you have things in Annapolis, you have ways for people, you meet people where they are, and I think that's so important and so valuable. When I started my outdoor journey as a dream to camp around the US, I never expected that my journey would lead me to where I am, like the knowledge level and the involvement that I have now. But one of the things that is amazing to me is how intricate and detailed the outdoor industry is. I never even thought it was an industry. And Recently, there was research that $1.2 trillion dollars, that's what is attributed to the outdoor industry. And I know next week you're bringing the outdoor industry in Maryland together. Why is it important that all the different facets come together in one place for a couple of days?
Well, you touched on so much there. Yeah, first off, to create that community and to raise up the perception that Maryland is an outdoor wonderland, right? As we said, there's so much here. There's so many experiences to be had. And I think there might be a perception sometimes that you have to either leave the state to go recreate and really spend time outside, or you have to leave the center of the state and either go to the the mountains or the shore. And some people who may not leave Baltimore or have the opportunity to travel that much, there's so much you can do right around Baltimore City. And so we, for instance, Patapsco Valley State Park is our oldest and largest park. And it spans 4 counties, 32 miles of river, and there's 200 miles of trails. And it comes right up to the city, touches the city, the waters and Patapsco River. And there's just so much to be had there. And by bringing people together, we're hoping to form communities that support each other, share best practices, and also create a louder voice to talk about the need for not only getting people outside for health and community support, but the resources that we need to care for these public lands, public infrastructure, whether it's trail maintenance or funding rangers or foresters or others, and water access points and maintenance. It takes a lot. And there's a lot of community benefit to be had. But that's one of the things we're hoping to get out of this.
So, who's going to be there? And what are you talking about? What do the rest of us need to be prepared for coming out of it?
So we have this is the great thing about the summit. And as you mentioned, this is our second year. We did the first one last year and we didn't really know what to expect. And we started in Western Maryland, where it's just the heart and it's one of their economic development strategies of outdoor recreation and come live and play in Western Maryland. And we had such a great time. And as you said, the outdoor industry is so big. And you could really break it down into people who are the producers of outdoor gear and infrastructure. Like our sponsors are, we have LifeStraw and Under Armour, or also City Bonfire, people who are producing things that help people get outside. But we also have these providers of outdoor experiences. So we'll have land managers and park staff, but also people who are working as guides or outfitters or providing that retail experience and getting people outside. And then there's the professionals who might do the mapping and teaching people about invasive species or how to use nature for health and health benefits. We'll have people who work in the creative side too, such as yourself. We have outdoor writers and we have filmmakers, and we're really excited to bring all these people together because the conversation that happens surprises even us. And it was just great to see it. Last year, we had two women who were both outdoor writers who lived on the opposite ends of the state, one down in Worcester County near the ocean, and the other one on the Delmarva Peninsula, and the other one Deep Creek Lake. And they met each other for the first time and got the chance to share practices. And they would have never really had that chance to meet had we not brought them together at that summit.
Do you enter into hosting something like this with a goal of what comes out of it? Or are you just holding space for whatever organically happens?
It's a great question. I think that it will evolve over the years. This is only our second. The first time was, again, like you said, holding space and creating community. And I think there's hasn't been that collective voice. You might have an equestrian community who represents their interest and they want to make sure that there's space to ride on trails. And then there's mountain bikers who may want technical features on a trail. And there's boaters who want to make sure there's water access, or anglers who want to talk about fishing limits and commercial and recreational fisheries. But I think bringing these voices together realizing that they are stronger together and that
Yeah.
they have a lot in common was our first goal. And we're furthering that this year. And I think we're also this year exploring the more of the health connections and within the
Oh,
urban context and access.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is something I'm really intrigued personally in the health benefits of nature. I think it's a hidden message in a lot of our podcasts is the physical, mental, and emotional benefits of being out in
Mhm.
nature. And
Yeah.
that's a hot topic. You guys have that woven through several places on your agenda. Why and how did that become such a hot topic? Why is that important now?
Oh, boy, I would say it's a stressful time for everyone right now,
Yeah.
whether it's budget constraints or particularly here in Maryland, we have a lot of federal workforce,
Mhm.
but it's just something that, we've seen trends in the society, whether it's social media or screen time and things like that. We know that less children are getting outdoors as much as we would like for them to, and as much as their parents or their grandparents did. I know myself, I work in this realm and I don't get outside enough. So it is just, I think, something that people are really starting to see. It's a non-medicated way, or it's a way that there's just can be so
Yeah.
healing. We've done a lot here in Maryland on training our own staff on how to welcome the public and maybe lead some of these more relaxing hikes and
Mindful.
nature
Yeah.
walks where it's not so much a hike to get there, but a slow, deliberative experience
Mhm.
in nature. We've done even some training on our own staff because it can be very stressful. Our staff are constantly in situations where we have to close parks due to capacity, or we are trying to make sure that our visitors are safe. And there's things that might be happening in the park, and they carry that with them and they care so much. And so we've even done some resiliency training on the outdoors and how the outdoors can help our own staff recharge. We're also going to be announcing our Maryland Outdoor Equity Grants coming up at the summit, where we've done some small grants to provide assistance to help build capacity for a lot of organizations who are trying to help, and really with health in mind for many of them, whether it's veterans with PTSD or children that have been in foster care or things like that, to help them with experiences getting outdoors. And I think the research is really growing. People are
Yeah.
really understanding the benefits.
Yeah, I've read a couple of things recently about in other countries where physicians actually can prescribe time outdoors. And I hope that makes its way here. I think everybody would benefit from leave your desk and just go sit outside. Um,
Absolutely.
okay, obviously I want people to go to Maryland. I want to go to Maryland to spend time outdoors. For people who are coming and attending, what can I expect? What can they expect when they attend?
We're really trying to highlight the outdoors that is nearby nature to Baltimore City and the surrounding areas of Central Maryland. So we're not only going to have amazing speakers and talks and panels, but we're going to get people outside. We're going to have excursions and opportunities for people to network while they are kayaking in the Baltimore Harbor or rock climbing in Patapsco Valley State Park. Or we have one day where we're doing an outdoor rec trek and we're going to have teams working and visiting partners around the harbor and Baltimore area, learning about things happening in the harbor, all while doing a fun competition with prizes, using our water taxi or learning about oysters in the harbor or art and how art and nature can integrate, as well as bike safety and things like that. So we have some amazing trips, boat trips and field trips for people. And we're really excited to show off what we're so proud of.
And the themes of the business of outdoor, recreation with purpose, and outdoor for all, I think you
Mhm.
really cover so much that impacts the people that are attending, but also those of us who are just outdoor users.
Mhm.
How will a regular listener, how will they ultimately feel the impact of what you're doing next week at the Maryland Outdoor Recreation Summit?
I really hope that this is going to result in people who are, we say the people who are coming here are the connectors to getting more people outside. So if we're building the capacity of those that are getting more people outside, then hopefully the experiences will be more abundant. There'll be sharing of resources figuratively and literally, because there'll be people announcing or have grants or tools or things like that. And so I think that making our providers feel more supported, and also if there are challenges that are happening, I think it's a great place to start the conversations. And whether it's this is a challenge we're seeing on our public lands, and how can you as users, what would you like to see? Or the other way around, or this is something that's happening on the waters. We really need a solution for that. And so starting with the community dialogue, I think is a great way to go when we're looking at policy solutions also.
I will put links to your socials and your website on this episode page because I think if you're listening and you want to follow along with progress, not just next week, but what's going on, following you all on socials is a great way to do it. I'm also going, and I hope to have a few episodes that come out of the content, but as well, I'll try to do some posting next week of like little teasers, and maybe I can pull some people aside for some quick interviews that we can let people know what's happening there. But it's very exciting, and I'm grateful to be part of it and to attend and witness it and be in such a lovely location in the Inner Harbor for the week. Thank you for sharing it with me. You guys have definitely put a spark that I need to go spend some quality time at parks and public lands in Maryland, and I'm really excited about it. Thank you.
You are very welcome here in
Thank
Maryland.
you. Thank you. Okay, so we end each episode, Sandi, with a speed round, and I know some of your staff has requested that I make sure you do this with us. So you two are getting the speed round. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready. I'll try and be
Okay.
fast.
Okay. What is your earliest park or public land memory?
I would say Rock Creek Park and visiting Rock Creek Park. My mom grew up in DC, and I'm the youngest of four, trying to keep us all busy. She would always take us back to the park for afternoons. And so spending time in Rock Creek Park in DC.
What made you love the parks?
At Rock Creek Park, there was a nature center that had an injured owl that was there and on display. And I think that owl captured my attention so much. And the thought of animals living in the woods there, I think is what made me love the outdoors.
What is your favorite thing about Maryland's parks, forests, and public lands?
Ooh. Well, the experiences are so different, as we said, from the mountains to the sea. But I think I love the cool temperatures in the west and the sounds of the ocean in the coastal area.
And now, what is your favorite thing to do in Maryland's parks, forests, and public lands?
Okay. Honestly, walk with my dog and hike with my dog in the park. I particularly love when it has snowed and you can see other animal footprints. And I love to watch my dog and her nose work. And I always say, when I can see the animal footprints in the snow, I can see what she smells. So I can see her tracking things.
What park have you yet to visit, but it's on your bucket list, and why?
So we have a tremendous amount of water trails in our system that we have mapped out, where it's access and you can take kayak or canoe or paddle and enter in one place and visit some historical sites. And I haven't had the chance to explore all of our water trails. So the Patuxent Water Trail is one that I'm really interested in exploring. And I have paddled a lot on the Patuxent, but and this actually is not our park. I think it's a Prince George's County, Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission park, but there's a paddle in campsite that I've always really wanted to do.
What are 3 must-haves you pack for a park, public land visit?
Water, a good snack, and the right shoes. So summertime, maybe water shoes, but usually hiking shoes or boots.
What is your favorite campfire activity?
S'mores. I know it's very basic, but I just love s'mores.
Tent, camper, or cabin?
I think that I have to admit I'm probably leaning more towards cabin these days. We have some fantastic cabins that I've had the privilege of getting to stay in and experience across the state. And more recently, I've actually gotten to stay in some of our yurts, which has been an amazing experience. One night I stayed in a park by myself in a yurt in the really big storm, and the sound of the rain on the yurt ceiling was just amazing.
Are you hiking with or without trekking poles?
Without
What is your favorite trail snack?
a good trail mix, but then a PBJ and an apple.
What is your favorite animal sighting?
My favorite animal sighting probably it did not happen in Maryland. I was in Grand Teton in Wyoming, and we saw a mama moose and her calf on the trail with my children who had been warned that the most dangerous thing you could see was a mama moose. So we backed up, gave her space. She followed us a little bit, and we just were very patient until she allowed us to go down the hill.
What is your favorite sound in the park?
Running water, yeah, from a stream, creek, or it could be waves crashing. But I love hiking next to a stream.
And what is the greatest gift that the parks and public lands give to us?
I think a chance to reflect on the landscape and look at others, look at the history of who has come before us and lived on that land, whether it's recent or our native indigenous peoples and their history. I love to look around and think of what happened here before. And that to preserve that and to be able to walk on the same land, I think is amazing.
Sandi, thank you. You are helping one of my visions come true because I've wanted to do a 30,000 kind of foot look at a state, and you are doing that. And I appreciate that. It was a great introduction to Maryland, and I am looking forward to seeing you next week, but also diving in and doing more and maybe bringing some of these stories to life for listeners in future episodes. So thank you for being with the Parks Podcast today.
Thank you so much, Missy, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks for listening to this episode. Until next time, we'll see you in the parks. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to like and share on your favorite podcast platform. Music for the Parks Podcast is performed and produced by Porter Hardy. For more information, please follow us on Instagram at The Parks Podcast or visit our website at theparkspodcast.com.